My name is Emily Harper, and for 22 years I tried to belong to the Oak Ridge Estates family that never wanted me. The neighborhood looked perfect on the surface: manicured lawns, identical beige houses, white picket fences gleaming under the California sun. But underneath it all was the iron fist of the Oak Ridge HOA, run by Karen Whitaker, our self-appointed queen. I'd paid every fee, every fine, every special assessment without complaint. I'd even written the check for the entire 10th anniversary community festival. $12,000 for the rented pavilion at Willow Park, caterers, live band, custom banners, the works, because I thought maybe this time they'd finally see me as one of them. They thought I'd stay silent again, reach for my checkbook again. This time I paid them back with something far colder: the terrifying silence of someone with nothing left to lose. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my corner office downtown. Sender: Pinnacle Events, the company I'd personally hired to coordinate the festival after Karen had suggested I take the lead on funding. I expected an update on the 5-course menu or the fireworks permit I'd already secured. Instead, I got a forwarded thread that the coordinator had accidentally included me on. At the very bottom was Karen Whitaker's message, typed in her signature polite but poisonous font. Just to clarify, Emily Harper is not a true neighbor. She's only handling the financial aspects. No need to include her in any of the actual event planning or guest arrangements. The coordinator had replied, "Understood." Noted beside her name, "Not a true neighbor. Do not add to guest list or family photos." I stared at those words until the screen blurred. My hands shook as I scrolled up through the chain where they discussed seating charts for the core families, photo ops with the board, and special toasts to our founding neighbors, while explicitly banning me from every single element except the invoice. The irony burned. I'd cut a $12,000 check 2 weeks earlier. Pavilion rental alone was $5,000. The custom Oak Ridge banners, the photographer, the gourmet spread for 200 residents. Every penny came from my account, but apparently my money was more welcome than I was. I pushed back from my desk and walked to the window overlooking the city. 34 years old, senior financial analyst at one of the largest firms in the valley, and still that 22-year-old woman who wasn't quite neighbor enough. My phone buzzed. A text from Travis, Karen's golden boy son who sat on the HOA board even though he barely lived here anymore. "Hey Mom said you got the email. Everything looking good for the festival?" He still called me like we were buddies, even while his mother made sure everyone knew I wasn't really part of the family. I'd helped him with college applications, driven him to lacrosse practice when Karen was too busy, even paid for his senior trip when the board couldn't find the budget. Blood, well, HOA blood was blood, and I had the wrong kind. I thought about calling my neighbor Gloria, the one who'd welcomed me when I first moved in as a scared 20-year-old after my parents' divorce. She'd promised nothing would change. "You'll always be part of our little community family," she'd said. Karen's version of community had been very different. She never yelled in public. Karen was too smart for that. Instead, she wielded citations and exclusion like scalpels, making sure I knew exactly where I stood in the Oak Ridge hierarchy. "Harper money," she'd mutter whenever I fixed something the rest of the board couldn't. "Not Whitaker leadership." When I paid off the community pool repair out of pocket last year, she told everyone at the annual meeting that Travis had led the initiative. When asked for clarification, she'd simply smiled and said, "Oh, I meant my actual son is the one who made it happen. The other one just wrote the check." My assistant knocked. "Emily, your 2 o'clock is here. Cancel it," I said, still staring out the window. "Cancel everything today. Is everything all right?" No, everything had never been all right, but I'd gotten very good at pretending otherwise. "Just some neighborhood business," I answered. The word tasted like rust. I sat back down and opened my laptop. First, I pulled up every contract I'd signed for the festival. Pinnacle Events, Willow Park Pavilion, artisan catering, premier sound, Oak Ridge florals. One by one, I reviewed the cancellation clauses. Then I called my bank. I need to stop payment on a check, $12,000 to Pinnacle Events. May I ask the reason? Fraud. I said simply, because that's exactly what this was. I'd been defrauded into believing I was purchasing a place in a community I would never actually receive. Next, I composed the email to Pinnacle Events. This is to inform you that I am terminating all contracts related to the Oak Ridge Estates 10th Anniversary Festival as per our agreement. I understand I will forfeit the deposits. Please process the cancellations immediately and confirm in writing. My phone rang. Gloria. Hi, sweetheart, she said with that forced cheer I knew too well. Just checking in about the festival planning. Pinnacle called Karen with some confusion. There's no confusion, I said. I'm canceling everything. Silence. Then, Emily, honey, what's going on? Is this about the email? Karen didn't mean. She meant exactly what she wrote. I interrupted. I'm not a true neighbor, so I won't be paying for a True Neighbor festival. You're being overdramatic. You know how Karen is with words. She just meant, Gloria, stop. My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. For 22 years I'd accepted being treated as not quite neighbor enough. I'd paid the fines, shown up when needed, disappeared when not wanted. I'd been the HOA's walking ATM. But I was done. Emily, please think about the community. This is our special day. The community is not my financial responsibility, I said, echoing Karen's own language back at her. We're not family. Remember. I hung up before she could respond. The phone rang again immediately, Karen this time. I let it go to voicemail and played the message on speaker. Listen here, you selfish little. The rest was a string of threats wrapped in HOA legalese. I deleted it before she finished. Then I forwarded the original email chain to my personal account, saving every word written about me. Evidence. 22 years of being nothing. And finally I had it in writing. The revolution of the scapegoat doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with the quiet decision to stop being what they need you to be. As I watched the sunset paint the valley gold from my office window, I made that decision. Emily Harper, not a true neighbor. They were right. I wasn't their neighbor. And for the first time in my life, I was perfectly fine with that. The first time Karen Whitaker showed me exactly what kind of woman she was, I was 22 years old. It was the annual 4th of July block party. My first as a full homeowner after my parents signed the deed over during their divorce. Karen had put me in charge of bringing the massive sheet cake from the clubhouse kitchen to the center gazebo where 200 residents waited. Be careful, Emily, she'd warned with that sweet smile. That cake is expensive. I was careful. I moved slowly, watching each step, my arms straining under the weight. I was 3 feet from the table when Travis Whitaker's friend sprinted past with a water gun. The stream hit my face. I flinched. The cake slipped. The top layer, the one with Happy 10th Oak Ridge, in perfect red frosting, tumbled onto the grass. The party went silent. Then Karen's voice cut through the air like a blade. Low, controlled, venomous. You stupid, clumsy girl. She never yelled in public. Every neighbor heard her. I watched their faces shift from shock to discomfort to polite blindness. Do you have any idea what you've just ruined? She walked toward me slowly while I stood frozen, still holding the remains of the cake. This is why we can't have nice things. You destroy everything you touch. Gloria tried softly. It was an accident, Karen. The boys were running. Don't make excuses for her incompetence, Karen snapped. She took the cake from my hands and set it on the table. She needs to learn that actions have consequences. The consequence that night was a $50 fine for disrupting community events and being told I wasn't welcome at the after-party barbecue. I could hear them laughing from my backyard while I sat alone on my patio. Travis asking where I was. Gloria making some excuse about me not feeling well. She's learning responsibility, Karen had said loud enough for me to hear through the fence. Maybe next time she'll be more careful with things that matter. I sat there that night and made a decision. If I couldn't be loved, I could at least be valuable. If I couldn't be family, I could be indispensable. From that day forward, I threw myself into my career with single-minded determination. Numbers became my refuge. Finance my escape route. While other young homeowners complained about mortgage rates, I was teaching myself investment strategies and tax law. Karen noticed, of course, but she attributed my success to anything except my own intelligence. Harper money, she'd say dismissively when I single-handedly funded the new playground equipment. Your parents' people were always good with numbers. Too bad they weren't smart enough to stay married. The casual cruelty of that statement, delivered at the HOA meeting while Gloria sat silent, taught me another lesson. In the Oakridge family, even the past wasn't safe from Karen's venom. By the time I turned 26, I'd learned to navigate Karen's moods like a sailor reading storm clouds. I knew which achievements to downplay, anything that might overshadow Travis, and which to highlight, anything that brought money or prestige to the HOA name. I learned to be visible when special assessments needed paying, but invisible during the annual board photos. Stand to the side, Emily, Karen would instruct. You're blocking the real families. The pattern continued. When I was promoted to senior analyst, Karen told the neighborhood Facebook group it was because the company felt sorry for the single girl. When I paid for the entire security camera upgrade out of pocket, she made sure everyone knew it was need-based assistance, not merit. They have quotas for people like her. She'd explain to her golf buddies as if I were some charity case rather than the woman who kept the HOA solvent. Gloria tried in her way. She'd sneak over after Karen's cutting remarks and pat my shoulder. She doesn't mean it, she'd whisper. She's just stressed about the rules. But she never stood up to her. Not when Karen forgot to invite me to the holiday block party. Not when she scheduled family-only meetings during my work hours. Not when she introduced Travis as our son, and me as that Harper girl from down the street. The day I bought my own house outright, no mortgage, all cash, Karen didn't congratulate me. She didn't even acknowledge it at the next meeting. She sat in her lawn chair watching everyone else celebrate Travis's promotion and only looked up when I walked past. Don't let success go to your head, she said. We're not paying for your mistakes if you fail later. Those were her parting words. Not congratulations or welcome to the real neighborhood. Just another reminder that I was one misstep away from being completely discarded. But my career changed everything. For the first time I could breathe. My colleagues didn't know I was not a true neighbor. My clients didn't care that Karen had labeled me an outsider. To them I was just Emily, the woman who always delivered. I joined professional groups, took on extra certifications, worked with the desperation of someone who knew there was no safety net. Every achievement was mine alone. Every success belonged to Emily Harper, not to the Oakridge narrative. When I closed my first 7-figure portfolio, Karen and Gloria didn't even send a card. Travis had a golf tournament that day, nothing special, but it was more important than acknowledging the woman who kept their community afloat. I stood in my office that night surrounded by celebrating coworkers and felt the peculiar loneliness of being unwanted. But underneath that loneliness was something else. A cold, hard determination that had been forged in years of casual cruelty. I was done being the girl who dropped the cake. I was done apologizing for existing. I was done trying to earn a seat at a table that had no place for me. That night I opened a spreadsheet and began planning my future. If I couldn't have a community, I'd have a fortune. If I couldn't have belonging, I'd have leverage. And someday, when they inevitably came calling, because money always brings the family back, I'd have the one thing Karen never thought I deserved, the power to say no. Freedom tastes different when you've been starved of it for years. For me, it tasted like black coffee at 2 a.m. While building investment models, like the crisp pages of financial textbooks, like the quiet hum of my laptop as I turned spreadsheets into my escape route. My career wasn't just a job. It was a metamorphosis. Every day away from Oak Ridge, I could feel myself uncurling like a plant finally finding sunlight. My bosses didn't know I was not a true neighbor. My clients didn't care that Karen had written me off. To them, I was simply Emily, the woman who sat in the front row of every conference and asked questions that made even partners pause. You have a gift for this, my mentor Janet told me after I restructured a failing nonprofit's finances. Have you considered your CFA? A gift. Not Harper money or pity quotas. A gift that was mine. I lived like a monk during those years. While other residents spent weekends at the country club, I took extra shifts analyzing portfolios. While they complained about HOA fines, I perfected the art of making every dollar stretch. Every dollar saved was a dollar toward my independence. The calls from the neighborhood were sporadic and transactional. Gloria would phone on Sunday nights, always opening with updates about Travis, his latest board victory, his new car, 20 minutes of Whitaker accomplishments before she'd ask, almost as an afterthought, "How are you doing, sweetheart?" "I'm fine," I'd always answer. What else was there to say? That I'd been selected for the firm's elite analyst program? That I'd landed a major client? She'd just relay it to Karen, who'd find some way to diminish it. The summer I didn't come home for the annual picnic, I told Gloria I needed to stay for a big project. The truth was simpler. I'd found peace. I spent 3 months learning everything I could about risk management. "You're the most focused analyst we've ever had," my supervisor said during my review. "Most people your age are still figuring out who they are. You seem like you've already decided." She was right. I had decided I was going to be someone who never needed anything from anyone again. By 30, I'd been promoted to senior financial manager. I had a corner office with a valley view, an investment portfolio that would make Karen choke on her iced latte, and a reputation as the woman who could fix any financial mess. Companies sought me out. Headhunters called weekly. "The Harper magic," one colleague joked after I salvaged a difficult merger. "You should bottle it. Harper magic." I liked that. It was mine, untainted by the Whitaker name or Karen's influence. It was proof that the girl she tried to diminish had become someone undeniable. I bought the biggest house on the street, an upgrade from my starter home, exposed brick, custom kitchen, the kind of place that whispered success without shouting it. I filled it with books and plants and the kind of quiet that comes from choosing your own company. Sometimes late at night, I'd pour a glass of wine and stand on my deck looking out at the identical roofs. I'd think about that 22-year-old girl banished to her patio while the neighborhood celebrated without her. I'd think about all the holidays standing to the side, all the achievements dismissed, all the moments of belonging denied. And then I'd go inside, check my portfolio balance, and remind myself that the best revenge is a life well lived. I had no idea that Karen was about to test that theory. The call came on a Thursday evening in March. I was reviewing quarterly reports, my second glass of wine growing warm on the desk, when Karen's name appeared on my phone screen. In 12 years, she had never called me directly. "Yeah," I answered, not bothering with pleasantries. "The community festival is in May." Her voice was the same gruff, dismissive tone she used on everyone who wasn't Travis. "Big affair. Pavilion. The works. Gloria thinks you should contribute." "Gloria thinks or you think?" Pause. "Don't get smart with me. You make the most money in this neighborhood." "I'm not part of the neighborhood," I interrupted. "Remember, you've made that very clear over the years. Don't be dramatic. You know what I meant. The point is, this is what neighbors do. They support each other." I almost laughed at the irony. 22 years of being excluded, and suddenly I was a neighbor when a check was needed. "How much?" I asked, cutting to the chase. 15,000 should cover it. Maybe 20 to be safe. This time I did laugh. 20,000 for a neighborhood picnic. The Whitakers have expectations. We need to show the other communities we're not some low-rent HOA. We, as if she had ever included me in we before. I'll think about it, I said and hung up before she could respond. But I already knew I'd cave. Not for Karen. Certainly not for the Whitakers I barely knew, but for the faint hope that maybe this time would be different. The call came 2 days later. Emily, sweetheart, Gloria began, and I could hear the rehearsed quality in her voice. I'm sure Karen mentioned the festival. She mentioned money, I corrected. Not much else. Oh honey, don't be like that. You know how Karen is. She's not good with words. But we're all so excited. Travis is going to be the MC. It's going to be beautiful. And my checkbook helps with that beauty. Emily. Her voice took on that disappointed tone I knew too well. This is the community's special moment. Don't you want everyone to have a beautiful celebration? There it was, the emotional manipulation. Smooth as silk. I'd watched her do this for years, making Karen's cruelty seem reasonable, making my exclusion seem like my own fault. Send me the details, I said finally. I'll handle the arrangements. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I knew we could count on you. I'll make it 12, I said. That's more than enough for a festival, even at Willow Park. But the Whitakers, they'll be impressed by taste, not excess. I'll hire the planner, make sure everything's perfect. You won't have to worry about anything. You're an angel, Gloria gushed. I'll email you the guest list. Over the next week, I threw myself into planning mode. I interviewed 3 companies and settled on Pinnacle Events. We chose dusty rose and sage linens, sophisticated but welcoming. The flowers, peonies, and garden roses. The menu, 5 courses of seasonal elegance. Each decision was made with a strange mixture of spite and hope. I'd show them all that the Harper girl had taste, had class, had value beyond her checking account. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe inclusion could be purchased. The contract with Pinnacle was comprehensive. 12,000 covered everything. I signed it with a sense of satisfaction. I'd done what they asked, but on my terms. This is going to be stunning, the coordinator assured me as I handed over the check. Your neighborhood is lucky to have someone with such good taste. My neighborhood. The words stung more than they should have. 2 weeks passed. Gloria sent sporadic updates. The guest list was being finalized. Travis was so grateful. I noticed she never mentioned anything about my own invitation, but I assumed that was obvious. Who funds a festival they're not invited to? I even bought a new dress, cocktail length, understated elegance. I had it tailored perfectly, imagining myself finally standing in the center of the group photo instead of to the side. Then came that Tuesday morning email. Looking back, I should have known. The delayed guest list, the vague responses, the way Gloria changed the subject when I asked about seating. But I'd let hope cloud my judgment. Let that 22-year-old girl who just wanted to belong influence the 34-year-old woman who should have known better. Emily Harper. Not a true neighbor. No need to include. 7 words that confirmed what I'd always known but tried to deny. I wasn't buying my way into anything. I was simply fulfilling my designated role, the ATM with a pulse, the financial resource to be tapped but never acknowledged. I sat at my desk staring at those words, feeling something inside me finally break. Not my heart, that had been broken and rebuilt too many times to count. Something deeper. The last thread of obligation that connected me to these people who shared my street but never my name. They wanted my money but not my presence. They needed my success but not me. For 22 years I'd accepted this arrangement. I sent birthday checks, graduation gifts, Christmas donations. I'd paid for pool repairs and security upgrades and Travis's lacrosse fees. I'd been the safety net they pretended didn't exist until the bills came due. But this was me actively participating in my own exclusion, paying for the privilege of being unwanted. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Karen's number. My finger hovered over the call button as I imagined what I'd say. But what was there to say that hadn't already been said in those 7 words? Instead, I opened my laptop and began typing the email to Pinnacle Events. It was time to show the Oak Ridge family that words have consequences and that some things can't be bought, including me. My hands were steady as I dialed Karen's number. 22 years of swallowing her cruelty had prepared me for this moment. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. What? Her standard greeting for me. No hello, just irritation. I saw the email from Pinnacle Events, I said, my voice calm. The one where you specified I'm not a true neighbor. Silence. Then, you weren't supposed to see that. But I did. Emily Harper, not a true neighbor. No need to include your exact words. Jesus Christ. You're really gonna make a big deal out of this? It was about planning logistics. You're too sensitive. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting it looks like you want my money but not my presence. Don't be ridiculous. Of course you're invited. No, I'm not. You specifically told them not to include me after I paid for everything. I heard her shift, probably settling into her oversized patio chair. Look, the other board members are traditional people. They ask questions about community dynamics. And it's just easier if we keep things simple. You wouldn't understand. You've never had to manage these kinds of social situations because you've never included me in them. Here we go, she muttered. Poor Emily. Always the victim. You got a free house in a nice neighborhood for 22 years. Got your career. And this is the thanks we get. Free. I laughed. But there was no humor in it. I've paid for every moment of tolerance since I started earning money. But apparently $12,000 doesn't buy me a seat at the table. Nobody asked you to pay that much. You always have to go overboard showing off. You asked for 20. I suggested 50. You're the one who... Stop. I cut her off. For once in your life, be honest. You don't consider me a true neighbor. You never have. I'm just a resource to you. You want honesty? Her voice dropped to that dangerous tone I remembered from every citation day. Fine. No, I don't consider you a true neighbor. I never have. I run this HOA, not you. I built this community, not some leftover girl whose parents couldn't keep it together. The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt like freedom. Thank you, I said quietly. Thank you for finally saying it out loud. Don't get all dramatic. You're still invited to the damn festival. No, I'm not. And more importantly, the festival isn't happening. At least not on my dime. What the hell are you talking about? For the first time in years, I heard genuine panic in her voice. The invitations already went out. Then you better start making calls. You selfish little... No, Karen. You humiliated me. I'm just returning the favor. I'll sue you. That money was a gift to the community. Actually, it wasn't. I have all the contracts in my name. I never transferred anything to the HOA legally. I can cancel whatever I want. Gloria will never forgive you. Gloria chose you over me 22 years ago. She's been not forgiving me ever since. You're destroying Travis's moment over petty. I don't have a community, I said, echoing her own words back at her. You made that very clear. I hung up before she could respond. The phone immediately started ringing again. Karen, then Gloria, then a number I didn't recognize, probably Travis. I let them all go to voicemail and called Pinnacle Events. It's Emily Harper. I need to cancel the Oak Ridge Festival. Oh no. Is everything all right? Is the event off? No. Just a change in circumstances. I understand I'll lose the deposits. Well, yes. At this late date, we're looking at about $4,000 in non-refundable costs. I understand. Please process the cancellations immediately. Of course. I'll send confirmation emails within the hour. I'm so sorry things didn't work out. So was I, in a way, but sorry for the girl who'd believe things might be different this time. I turned my phone off and focused on work for the next 2 hours. When I finally turned it back on, I had 17 missed calls and dozens of texts. I deleted them all without reading and called Gloria. She answered on the first ring. Emily, thank God. What is this nonsense about canceling the festival? It's not nonsense. I've canceled all the contracts. But why? Karen said you had some misunderstanding about the planning. There's no misunderstanding. She told the event planner I'm not a true neighbor. Her exact words. So I'm acting accordingly. Oh honey. Her voice took on that placating tone I knew too well. You know how Karen is. She didn't mean it that way. Yes, she did. She told me so herself. She said she doesn't consider me a true neighbor. Never has. I'm just some leftover whose parents couldn't keep it together. Silence. Then, she shouldn't have said that. But she did. And you know what? I'm grateful. Finally, after all these years, we all know where we stand. Emily, please think about the community. I don't have a community. Karen made that clear too. You're being childish. This is Travis's special moment. Then Travis's mother can pay for it. You know we can't afford what you arranged. Then arrange something else. That's not my problem anymore. How can you be so cruel? I actually laughed. Cruel? I've paid for everything for years while being told I'm not a true neighbor. I've been excluded from block parties, ignored at meetings, written off after writing check after check. But I'm cruel for finally saying enough. Neighbors don't keep score. Emily, you're right. Neighbors don't. Which is why I'm done pretending we are one. If you do this, you're out. Do you understand? No more invites. No more calls. Nothing. Gloria, I've been out for 22 years. You're just finally admitting it. I'm serious. Emily, cancel this festival and you're dead to us. I already canceled it. And I've been dead to you since the day you chose Karen over me. That's not. You did. Every time she excluded me and you stayed silent. Every time she diminished me and you made excuses. Every single day for 22 years. You chose her. She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. Emily, please, we can fix this. I'll talk to Karen. Maybe if you apologize. Apologize for what? For expecting to be treated like a neighbor after paying for a neighbor event? For wanting to be included after being bled dry financially? What am I supposed to tell people? And there it was. Not concern for our relationship. Not sadness over losing a neighbor. Just worry about appearances. Tell them the truth. Tell them you chose your HOA president over basic decency. Tell them money was welcome but I wasn't. Or make something up. I don't care anymore. Emily, goodbye. Gloria. I hung up and immediately blocked her number, then Karen's, then Travis's. One by one, I severed the digital ties that had bound me to people who'd never wanted me bound to them in the first place. The last text I sent was to Travis. Your mother made it clear I'm not a true neighbor. I wish you every happiness, but I won't finance it. The festival contracts have been canceled. You'll need to make other arrangements. Then I blocked him too. I sat in my office as the sun set over the valley, watching the city lights flicker on. Somewhere out there the Whitaker family was scrambling, making phone calls, trying to salvage their precious festival. Somewhere Gloria was probably still crying. Not for the neighbor she'd lost, but for the embarrassment she'd face. And here I was, for $1,000 poorer, but infinitely wealthier in self-respect. For 22 years I'd paid for the privilege of being tolerated. Now, for the first time, I was free. The price of that freedom, $4,000 in deposits and a community that had never been mine to lose. It was the best investment I'd ever made. The email from Pinnacle Events arrived within the hour. Crisp, professional, final. Dear MS. Harper, this confirms the cancellation of all services for the Oak Ridge Estates 10th Anniversary Festival. As discussed, the following deposits are non-refundable. Willow Park Pavilion $1,500. Artisan Catering $800. Premier Sound $400. Oak Ridge Florals $750. Photography $500. Total forfeited $3,950. We've notified all vendors. We regret that circumstances prevented this event from moving forward and wish you the best. Sincerely, Elise Crawford, Pinnacle Events. I printed the email and filed it carefully. Evidence. Proof that I'd finally drawn a line and stood behind it, even when it cost me. That night I poured myself a glass of the good wine. A 2015 Bordeaux I'd been saving for a special occasion. If declaring independence from 22 years of emotional servitude wasn't special, I didn't know what was. I sat on my deck, city lights twinkling below, and raised my glass to the night sky. To Emily Harper, I said aloud. Not a true neighbor. Not sorry. My phone charging in the kitchen buzzed occasionally with calls from unknown numbers. Word was spreading. Apparently the extended Oak Ridge network was mobilizing to guilt their reward ATM back into service. I ignored them all and went to bed early, sleeping better than I had in months. The next morning I unblocked the neighborhood Facebook group long enough to check the pages. I rarely used social media, too many opportunities to see the block parties I wasn't invited to, but curiosity won out. I didn't have to look far. Travis's fiancée had posted in what she must have thought was a private group. Can you believe the drama? His so-called neighbor canceled our entire festival because she got her feelings hurt. Now we have to tell 200 people the party is off because Princess Emily threw a tantrum. Who does that? Karen was right about her all along. Not true neighbor material. The comments were a masterclass in enabling. OMG, that's awful. She sounds toxic. You're better off without that kind of energy. Some people just can't be happy for others' success. Jealousy is so ugly. But then I saw something that made me pause. A comment from Linda Morrison, a quiet resident who'd always been kind to me. Wait, didn't she pay for the whole festival? Maybe there's more to this story. Travis's fiancée's response was swift. Money doesn't buy you the right to destroy people's happiness. She's always been unstable. According to the board, unstable. That was a new one. Not ungrateful or dramatic. Now I was unstable. The narrative evolution of scapegoating. Live on Facebook. I screenshotted everything before blocking the group again. Not for any particular purpose, just evidence. Thursday brought a registered letter. Inside was a single page on Karen's HOA letterhead. It was a masterpiece of delusional authority. Ms. Harper, this serves as formal notice that you are no longer welcome at any Oak Ridge community gatherings, events, or properties. Your malicious and destructive actions toward the community festival demonstrate a pattern of instability and vindictiveness that poses a threat to neighborhood harmony. Any attempts to contact residents or attend events will be considered harassment. Your financial contributions do not override the board's right to peace and protection from toxic individuals. Karen Whitaker, HOA President. I filed this letter with the Pinnacle email. Evidence of their choice, not mine. Friday morning my assistant knocked. Emily, there's a woman in the lobby asking to see you. Says she's your neighbor. Aunt Patricia, Karen's sister, another board member who'd perfected the art of looking through me at every meeting. I considered using the back exit, but curiosity made me approach her. We need to talk, she said, clutching her purse. No, we don't. Please, just 5 minutes. I come in peace. Against my better judgment, I led her to the coffee shop across the street. She ordered a complicated latte. I got black coffee. This is all such a misunderstanding, she began. Karen's beside herself. Gloria hasn't stopped crying. And poor Travis. Stop, I interrupted. I've heard this song before. Karen's not beside herself. She's angry her wallet is gone. Gloria's crying about embarrassment, not loss. And Travis is only poor because he has to pay for his own festival now. That's not fair, is it? Tell me, Patricia, in 22 years did you ever once stand up for me when Karen introduced me as that Harper girl? Did you correct her when I was excluded from board photos? Did you protest when I was fined for grass that was 2.1 inches instead of 2? Did you notice? She had the grace to look uncomfortable. It wasn't my place. Exactly. It was never anyone's place. Everyone was too busy keeping Karen comfortable to notice the neighbor she was destroying. You're being dramatic. Karen provided the community for you. Karen tolerated me. There's a difference. And I paid for that tolerance over and over again. Do you know how much money I've given this HOA over the years? I pulled out my phone and opened the spreadsheet I'd created years ago. $37,000, not counting this latest fiasco. Pool repairs, security upgrades, Travis's events, Christmas donations that were never reciprocated. $37,000 to be told I'm not a true neighbor. Patricia's face went pale. I didn't realize. Because you didn't want to realize. None of you did. It was easier to let me be the checkbook than to acknowledge what you were all complicit in. What do you want from us? Emily? Nothing, I said simply. For the first time in my life, I want absolutely nothing from any of you. You can't just cut out your entire neighborhood. I'm not. I'm accepting the cut Karen made 22 years ago. She said I'm not a true neighbor. I'm just finally agreeing with her. This will kill Gloria. Gloria died the first time she watched Karen hurt me and chose silence. What's left is just Karen's loyal subject. I left her there with her complicated latte and her simple problems. As I walked back to my office, I felt lighter with each step. The weight of unwanted obligations, the burden of purchasing belonging that was never for sale, all of it falling away like old paint from a restored masterpiece. That weekend I updated my will. The various Oak Ridge residents who'd been included out of some misguided sense of duty were removed. The women's shelter where I volunteered became my primary beneficiary. They'd appreciate the Harper money more than people who couldn't appreciate the Harper herself. I also did something I'd been putting off for years. I legally changed my emergency contact from Gloria to Janet. When the lawyer asked if I was sure, I'd never been more certain of anything. Family estrangement is more common than you'd think, she said gently. This isn't estrangement, I corrected. It's honesty. By Sunday the calls had stopped. The neighborhood had apparently accepted my exodus. Probably already spinning stories about unstable Emily, selfish Emily, Emily who couldn't handle being part of something bigger than herself. Let them. I had work to do, a life to live, a future to build that didn't include begging for scraps of belonging from people who'd made it clear I didn't belong. $37,000. That's what 22 years of hoping had cost me. $4,000 in deposits. That's what freedom had cost me. The math was simple. I'd gotten a bargain. The Facebook post went viral within the Oak Ridge network before spreading further. Travis had written it himself, and it was a masterpiece of manipulation. Some of you may have heard that our festival was canceled. What you might not know is why. My neighbor Emily, I still call her that despite everything, has always struggled with being part of our community. We've tried for years to include her, but she's always held herself apart, acting like she's better than us because she makes more money. When she offered to help with the festival, we were so grateful. We thought maybe this would finally bring us together. But when she found out she couldn't control every detail, she canceled everything out of spite. The pavilion, the catering, the flowers, everything gone. 200 residents left without a celebration. My fiancé is devastated. My parents are heartbroken. And all because Emily can't stand to see others happy. I'm sharing this not to shame her, but to ask for prayers for our community during this difficult time. And maybe, if you're so inclined, to help us salvage something for May 15th. We're not proud and we'll take any help we can get. Sometimes community isn't about location. It's about who shows up when times are hard. Attached were 3 photos. One of Travis and his fiancée looking sad but beautiful, one of Karen and Gloria embracing, and one of the cancellation notice from Willow Park that he'd somehow obtained. The comments poured in. OMG Travis, I'm so sorry. What kind of person does that? She sounds like a narcissist. Classic behavior. Within hours, Travis's tragedy had become a rallying cry. People who'd never met me were dissecting my character and offering their theories on why I was such a monster. The GoFundMe hit $3,000 in the first day. My old coworker Sarah sent me screenshots with a simple message. Thought you should see this. Also, screw them. I appreciated the loyalty but didn't respond. What was there to say? That Travis had learned well from Karen how to play victim while victimizing others? That he twisted 22 years of exclusion into a story where I was the villain for finally walking away? The irony wasn't lost on me. They were raising money from strangers while painting me as selfish for not giving them mine. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source. Mara Morrison started pushing back in the comments. Wait, didn't she pay for the whole festival? How is she the bad guy for canceling something she was financing? Maybe ask yourselves why she felt the need to cancel. This smells like missing reasons. Travis tried damage control. Mara, you don't know the whole story. Emily's always been troubled. But Mara wasn't buying it. The thread devolved, with Whitaker supporters attacking Mara and a small but vocal group defending the unnamed neighbor who dared to keep her own money. I watched it all unfold from my couch, eating takeout Thai and feeling strangely detached. This was who they were. This was who they'd always been. I'd just been too desperate for belonging to see it before. One message got through to my work email from an address I didn't recognize. Emily, you don't know me, but I know you. I was Karen's first project neighbor before you. I lasted 6 years before I went no contact. Saw the Facebook drama and had to reach out. She did the same thing to me, the exclusion, the not true neighbor comments, the expectation that I'd fund things I wasn't welcome at. I wasn't as strong as you. I kept trying to buy my way in until I was broke and broken. You did the right thing. These people are vampires and Karen's the worst of them. Let them all rot. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Stay strong. Diane. I read the email 3 times before closing it. Somewhere out there was another woman who'd survived the Oak Ridge treatment. Another not true neighbor who'd been bled dry before escaping. How many of us were there? How many residents had Karen emotionally destroyed while Gloria stood by? How many had funded their own exclusion before finally breaking free? The Facebook drama continued for days. Someone leaked that I made 6 figures, and the narrative shifted to rich, selfish Emily hoarding wealth while her struggling community suffered. Never mind that Karen owned multiple properties. Never mind that they'd been prepared to spend $20,000 on a festival. Facts didn't matter when there was a story to tell. The GoFundMe eventually raised $8,000. Local vendors offered discounts. 3 churches offered their halls. The festival was back on, bigger than ever. A triumph over adversity. Community coming together. A neighborhood persevering despite the cruelty of one toxic resident. I learned about the new festival date through LinkedIn of all places. Someone had tagged Travis in photos from a networking event. May 15th was still happening, just in a church fellowship hall instead of Willow Park. Good for them. They'd gotten their festival and their narrative. Travis was the victim who'd overcome. Karen was the strong president holding everyone together. Gloria was the long-suffering neighbor who'd tried so hard with her difficult resident. And I was the villain who'd shown her true colors just in time. The real kicker came 2 weeks later. A text from an unknown number with a screenshot of another Facebook post from Travis's fiancée. Community planning tip. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. So grateful we learned certain people's true nature before the actual festival. Now we can plan our perfect day surrounded by people who actually support us. Blessed how toxic-free our real community is. Attached was a photo of her new festival outfit, significantly more expensive than anything I'd inadvertently helped finance. The comments were full of fire emojis and yes queen energy. I had to laugh. They'd turned my $4,000 loss into an $8,000 gain. They'd transformed my stand for self-respect into their origin story as a couple who'd overcome adversity. They'd monetized my absence better than they'd ever monetized my presence. Karen must be so proud. Her son had learned the family business well. Find someone desperate to belong, bleed them dry, then discard them while playing victim. Rinse and repeat. But they'd made one miscalculation. They'd assumed I'd care about the narrative, that I'd fight back, try to tell my side, engage in their drama, that I'd be so desperate to belong that I'd beg for reinstatement. Instead, I blocked the unknown number and went back to my life, my real life, where I was valued for more than my checking account, where my worth wasn't measured in how much abuse I could tolerate, where community was defined by mutual respect, not location or HOA bylaws. Let them have their fellowship hall festival. Let them toast to their toxic-free future. Let them tell stories about unstable Emily who couldn't handle happiness. I had something better. A bank account they could no longer access and a life they could no longer infiltrate. The Facebook post might have gone viral, but viruses eventually burn themselves out. Freedom, I'd learned, was the only thing that lasted. 3 weeks after the drama died down, a text came at 2:47 a.m. from an unknown number. Emily, it's Gloria. I'm using Patricia's phone. Please don't block this number. I need you to know something. I'm not asking for money or forgiveness. Just please read this. You were right about all of it. About Karen. About me choosing her. About failing you. I've been awake for 3 days thinking about what you said. I chose her every single day for 22 years. You were right. I tell myself I was trying to keep the peace, trying to make the community work. But the truth is I was a coward. I was so afraid of being alone again after my divorce that I let Karen destroy the one good thing I had left. You. I remember when you were 22 and Karen blamed you for the cake. You looked at me with such hope, waiting for me to defend you. I saw it in your eyes when that hope died. I've seen that look every day since in my mind, but I pretended I didn't. I chose a woman who hurt my neighbor over the neighbor who never hurt anyone. I chose financial security over your emotional safety. I chose the easy lie of, that's just how Karen is, over the hard truth of what I was letting her do to you. You deserved a community that fought for you. Instead, you got one that taught you that belonging meant accepting cruelty. No wonder you finally walked away. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not sure I could forgive me if I were you. I just needed you to know that I know. I see it now. All of it. Every time I failed you. You're the only person in this neighborhood with integrity. And we punished you for it. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough. 22 years too late. But I'm sorry. Gloria. I read it 6 times before setting my phone down. My hands were shaking, but not from anger. From something more complicated. The grief of finally hearing words I'd needed 2 decades ago. She knew. She'd always known. That was the worst part. Not that she'd been blind to Karen's cruelty, but that she'd seen it clearly and chosen to look away. I didn't respond. What was there to say? That her apology was accepted? It wasn't. That I forgave her? I didn't. That things could be different now? They couldn't. Some wounds cut too deep for midnight confessions to heal. 2 days later, a package arrived at my office. No return address, but I recognized Gloria's handwriting. Inside was a small box wrapped in tissue paper. I unwrapped it carefully. It was a photo album I'd never seen before. The first picture stopped my breath. Me at age 3, sitting on my father's shoulders, both of us laughing at something off camera. Page after page of memories I didn't know existed. My first day of kindergarten, Christmas morning when I was 6, My father teaching me to ride a bike. Then abruptly the photos stopped. The rest of the album was empty except for a single sheet of paper tucked into the back cover. I hid these after Karen moved in as president. She said dwelling on the past was unhealthy, that you needed to adapt to your new community. I told myself I was protecting you from painful memories. But I was protecting her from comparison. Your father would have hated what I became. What I let happen to you. These belong to you. They always did. Like so many things I kept from you. Gloria. I closed the album and sat at my desk staring at nothing. She'd hidden photos of my father to make Karen comfortable. She'd erased my history to preserve her present. Even my memories weren't safe from her choices. My assistant knocked. Your 10 o'clock is here. Give me 5 minutes. I put the album in my desk drawer and compartmentalized the grief. Later. I'd deal with it all later. For now I had work to do. A life to live that didn't revolve around the Oak Ridge dynamics. That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out the album again. I studied each photo, trying to remember the man who'd loved me without conditions or qualifiers. He looked kind. That was what struck me most. The genuine warmth in his eyes, the easy way he held me, the joy in his face when he looked at his daughter. No calculación. No resentment, no careful distance, just love. This was what I'd been trying to recreate with the Oak Ridge family. This was the belonging I'd been trying to buy back. But you can't purchase what was never for sale. Can't negotiate for what was freely given and then stolen away. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time I didn't look. Instead I pulled out a piece of stationery and wrote, Patricia, please tell Gloria I received the album. That's all. Emily. I mailed it the next morning, knowing it would get back to her. It was the only response I could manage, acknowledgement without absolution. Receipt without reconciliation. A month passed in blessed silence. No texts, no calls, no manufactured emergencies designed to pull me back into the Oak Ridge vortex. I'd almost started to believe they'd finally accepted my exodus when my phone rang with an unknown local number. Against my better judgment I answered. Miss Harper, this is Beth from Willow Park Pavilion. I'm calling about the Oak Ridge Festival. My stomach tightened. That event was weeks ago. Yes. Well, that's why I'm calling. Mrs. Whitaker came in yesterday wanting to rebook for next month. She said you'd be handling the payment again. But when we tried to process the deposit on the card we have on file, that card was canceled, I said flatly. And I'm not associated with any Oak Ridge events. Oh, Beth sounded genuinely confused. She seemed very certain you'd be paying. She even gave us your work number as the contact. She was mistaken. Please remove my information from any files related to the Oak Ridge community. Of course. I'm so sorry for the confusion. I hung up and immediately called my credit card company to confirm all my old cards were indeed canceled. They were. But the fact that Karen had been so confident I'd caved that she'd attempted to rebook on my dime told me everything I needed to know. They weren't done with me. They were just regrouping. The next attempt came through my workplace. My boss William knocked on my door Friday afternoon with an uncomfortable expression. Emily, I just had the strangest call. A woman claiming to be your HOA president. Former HOA president, I corrected. What did she want? She said there was a community emergency and you weren't answering your phone. She was quite insistent. What kind of emergency? She wouldn't say. Just kept demanding your personal cell number. When I explained I couldn't give out employee information, she got aggressive. Accused me of keeping you from your neighborhood obligations. I rubbed my temples. I'm sorry she bothered you. William, there's no emergency. This is about money, not community. I figured as much when she mentioned something about you destroying the neighborhood's future. William's expression was sympathetic. Do you need me to have security flag her number? Please. And if anyone else calls claiming to be from the HOA, same protocol. Of course. And Emily, if you need time off to deal with whatever this is, thank you. But the best thing I can do is stay focused on work. They can't reach me here. How wrong I was. The following Tuesday, I found Travis in the lobby of my building when I arrived at work. He was sitting in one of the leather chairs, scrolling through his phone, looking every inch the entitled young man Karen had raised him to be. I considered turning around, but the security guard had already seen me. Morning, Ms. Harper. This gentleman says he's your neighbor. Former neighbor, I said, not breaking stride toward the elevators. And he's not on my authorized visitor list. Emily, come on. Travis stood, following me. We need to talk. No, we don't. I badged through the security turnstile. Tom, please have him removed if he doesn't leave voluntarily. You're being ridiculous, Travis called after me. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I stopped at the elevator, turned back. You had 22 years. You're not getting 5 more minutes. The elevator doors closed on his shocked face. But I knew it wouldn't end there. Travis had inherited Karen's persistence along with her cruelty. He was waiting by my car when I left that evening. How did you? Gloria told me where you park. He held up his hands in mock surrender. Look, I know you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm done. There's a difference. Just hear me out. Please. His voice cracked slightly. And for a moment I saw the little boy I'd helped raise. Things got out of hand. Mom was wrong to write what she did. Gloria's a mess. Can't we just start over? Start over. I laughed. But there was no humor in it. Which time should we start over from? Travis? When I was 22 and took the blame for the cake. When I was 26 and Karen scheduled a board meeting during my promotion ceremony. When I funded the security upgrade and none of you showed up. Or should we start from 2 weeks ago when you raised $8,000 by painting me as a monster on social media? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. That wasn't supposed to happen. The GoFundMe thing just took off. And you let it. You wrote that post knowing it was lies, knowing people would attack me, knowing it would damage my reputation. But hey, you got your festival fund, right? It's not about the money. It's always been about the money. The only time any of you acknowledge my existence is when you need a check. Well, the bank is closed. Travis, permanently. So that's it? You're just going to pretend we don't exist. I'm going to treat you exactly how you've treated me for 22 years. Like you're not a true neighbor. Mom was right about you. You are toxic. We try to include you. Try to include me? I started my car. Travis, you cashed every check I ever sent while making sure I knew I wasn't really part of the community. You took my money for your events while letting Karen introduce me as nobody important. You planned a festival on my dime while explicitly excluding me from the guest list. That's not trying to include me. That's treating me like an ATM. At least I had a mother who wanted me. The words hung in the air between us. There it was. The community cruelty passed down like an heirloom. Karen to Travis. Generation to generation. You're right, I said quietly. You had a mother who wanted you and she taught you exactly how to be just like her. Congratulations. I drove away, leaving him standing in the parking garage in my rearview mirror. I saw him pull out his phone, no doubt reporting back to Karen that the mission had failed. But the cruelest blow came 3 days later. A courier arrived at my office with a formal-looking envelope. Inside was a save-the-date for the rescheduled festival. Clearly printed weeks ago, but only now being delivered. Across the bottom in Karen's handwriting, consider this your official notice that you're not welcome, just in case you were planning to crash. They'd had my invitation all along. They'd kept it just to deliver this final insult, this last twist of the knife. I studied the card, the happy couple smiling, the date 6 months away, the venue another park I'd probably have been asked to pay for if I'd remained in the fold. Then I fed it into my office shredder and watched their smiles disappear into strips of paper. Life went on. Meetings happened. Deals were made. Money moved through accounts that the Oak Ridge community would never access again. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, the pain began to fade. They'd keep trying. I knew there'd be more ambushes, more manipulations, more attempts to drag me back into their dysfunction. But each time would be easier to resist, because each time reminded me why I'd left. I pulled up my personal banking app and looked at the account I'd created just for neighborhood expenses. For years it had hemorrhaged money, 1,000 here, 5,000 there, death by 1,000 checks. Now it sat untouched, growing with interest instead of shrinking with obligation. 37,000 over the years, plus 4,000 in canceled deposits, plus whatever emotional currency I'd spent trying to buy belonging from people who'd only ever seen me as a resource. The math was simple. I'd spent 41,000 learning that some things can't be bought. It was worth every penny. 3 months later, the final email arrived. I almost deleted it unread. The subject line from Gloria, "Please read," was becoming as familiar as spam. But something made me open it. Perhaps the knowledge that this particular chapter needed its last page. "Emily, this is the last time I'll contact you. Promise." The festival happened last weekend. It was a small ceremony in Karen's backyard. The pavilion booking fell through when the other board members discovered the GoFundMe situation. They were apparently not as understanding about community support as everyone thought. Travis was devastated. He kept looking at the empty chairs during the backyard event with his rebound date. A girl he knew from high school who'd always loved him. Those empty chairs were meant for the other side. But all I could see was your absence. Karen lost her board position last month. "Poor leadership," she says. But I know the truth. She spent so much time scheming to get your money back that she neglected her actual duties. She's drinking more now. We're probably losing the house. I'm leaving her. Emily, 22 years too late. But I'm leaving. My sister in Oregon said I can stay with her while I figure things out. I know you'll probably never read this. I know I have no right to tell you any of this, but I wanted you to know that the house of cards you walked away from has finally collapsed. You were the only real thing in this neighborhood, and we drove you away. I'm including a photo I found while packing. It's you at your college graduation. I'd hidden it because Karen didn't want those photos displayed in her community narrative. But you look so proud, so ready to take on the world. You became everything that expression promised, despite us. Maybe because of us. Be happy, Emily. Be free. Be everything we tried to stop you from being. Gloria. P.S. That investment account you set up for me years ago, the one Karen never knew about, it's worth enough to start over, even in exile. You were taking care of me. That's who you are. That's who we punished you for being. I read it twice before closing my laptop. There was a photo attachment, but I didn't open it. I didn't need to see who I'd been to know who I'd become. The Oak Ridge empire, built on emotional manipulation and financial exploitation, had crumbled without their designated ATM to prop it up. There was poetic justice in that, but no satisfaction, just a hollow acknowledgement that some endings write themselves. I filed the email in a folder marked past and went back to reviewing portfolios. Janet knocked on my door minutes later. "Bad time?" she asked, noting my expression. "No. Perfect timing, actually. What's up? Remember that scholarship program you suggested for the women's shelter? They want to name it after you." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "Anonymous donor. Remember, they're insisting. Apparently one of the recipients this year has a story that reminds them of yours. Single mother's daughter paying her own way through college. No family support. Maria says you'd be an inspiration." I thought about it. Emily Harper, not Whitaker. Never Whitaker attached to something positive. Something that helped women escape situations where they were valued only for their utility. "Tell them they can use the Phoenix Scholarship," I finally said. "For rising from ashes." Janet smiled. I like it. Subtle but meaningful. That night I stood on my deck with a glass of wine, the good stuff. Always the good stuff now. And thought about phoenixes. The myth got one thing wrong. You didn't rise from your own ashes. You rose from the ashes of who they tried to make you be. My phone sat silent on the counter. No more unknown numbers. No more midnight guilt trips. No more financial emergencies that were only emergencies for them. The silence that had once felt like rejection now felt like freedom. Somewhere in Oregon, Gloria was starting over. Somewhere in our old neighborhood, Karen was drowning in consequences. Somewhere Travis was learning that the world didn't owe him anything just because his mother taught him to take. And here in my new life I was living a life they'd never understand. One where worth wasn't measured in location or obligation. Where belonging wasn't transactional. Where community was chosen, not inflicted. I'd spent $41,000 learning that lesson. But the real education had been free. Every cruel citation, every exclusion, every reminder that I wasn't a true neighbor had taught me exactly what a true neighbor wasn't. The scholarship would help other women learn that lesson, hopefully with less pain. They'd rise from their own ashes, build their own lives, discover their own worth, and maybe someday they'd stand on their own decks with their own good wine and realize the most powerful word in the English language wasn't love or community or even money. It was no. 2 letters, 1 syllable, the complete sentence that had set me free. I raised my glass to the night sky, to the father I barely remembered who loved me without conditions, to the woman I've become despite everything, to the community I'll someday build with people who know my worth has nothing to do with my wallet. To Emily Harper, I said aloud, not a true neighbor, not sorry, not looking back. The wine tasted like victory. And for the first time in 34 years I was exactly where I belonged, on my own terms, by my own choice, living a life that was entirely mine. The Oak Ridge family had given me one gift worth keeping. They taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't success or happiness or even indifference. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to play the game at all. And as I went inside to my quiet apartment, my chosen solitude, my hard-won peace, I knew with absolute certainty that I had already won.